Done. So do you want to read the usual introduction thing?
Sure, be happy to. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Committee to Assess and Recommend Strategies for Housing Creation within the town. It's February 24th, 3 p.m., and we are in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room, second floor of the Town Hall. This meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. This meeting will be replayed via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live video on demand archives on the Town of Barnstable's website. Councilors: Schnapp.
Here.
Lutke.
Here.
Bloom.
Here.
Crow.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Mary Ann Barboza. Hilda Hay.
Here.
Laura Schufelt.
Here.
And Chair of Committee Rick Presby.
Here.
You have full quorum.
So I'm opening the meeting for public comment. Anyone in the audience who'd like to come up to the microphone and give us some suggestions, some ideas? Please let us know your name.
All right, how about now? Yep. Chris Gregory, Centerville. I came to talk today about the work you were all doing in the context of the governor's report that came out recently, because some of the conversation I've seen in the other committees has taken the tone of mission accomplished almost, and I don't necessarily think that that's warranted if you look deeper at the numbers, especially in context of the ad hoc committee for zoning was looking at a document that the Cape Commission put out about housing, and if you look at the data from both of those reports, I don't think that the picture is quite as clear. The main position of the governor's report seems to be based on demographic collapse in our region to some extent. That they're saying we are not going to need more housing in 10, 15 years because we are going to lose population. And I don't know that that's true. Like, certainly we do have an aging population, and that a good portion of our population will turn over the next 15 years. But if you're looking at the Cape Commission report, a lot of the housing issues has been exacerbated by the growth in second homes in our area. I think that they stated in 2023, 42% in Mid-Cape are second homes, which is massive in comparison. We talk a lot about short-term rentals, but that's 3 to 5%, 42%. And I don't see how that problem is going to get any better, especially with the cost of land and the cost of houses here. So as the population ages and those houses turn over, if you have 2 or 3 kids inheriting one house, one kid isn't going to be able to afford to buy out the other kids, so they're going to put that house on the market. Who's going to buy that house? Someone looking for a summer home or someone looking for a retirement home. People in the upper 2 deciles, they're going to move here and generate more demand for services because they have the excess cash to do so. And that's going to stimulate our economy and make employers need more people to work for them who can't afford to live here. And I think that I'm worried that there's a different end scenario to that demographic shift that the governor's report is looking at that would create a much worse problem here than, oh, we need to build another 200 units and we'll be fine. So I just want to talk about that in the context of of what you all are considering. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the idea of by right upzoning has been bandied about a few times here, and I just want to come and speak in support of it again, because again, we talk about the character of our villages. I think in the village centers, there's some character in some of them, I suppose. But once you get out of those 1 or 2 block areas, you have things that are trying to be neighborhoods, and some are more successful than others, partially based on how many of the houses are sitting empty most of the year. And I talked about this before. I live off Finney's Lane. That's not a neighborhood. That's a road people drive too fast on. And if you live on one of the side streets, you might have a neighborhood in your side street, but it could be something much bigger and much more healthy as an ecosystem for the people that live here. But what I see are houses being bought or new houses being built that are McMansions or existing homes that are being expanded because they're homes for people to engage in leisure in. They're not homes to be lived in. And as more and more of those houses turn over, we're just losing single-family houses for people that live here year-round. And the only solution I see in that type of area is if you give someone a chance to buy one of those houses and take a cape or take a branch and turn it into a biplex or 3 townhouses adjoined to each other with, maybe like studio basements in the basement, turn it into something that's still a place where families can live and commune with their neighbors, but it's not a big tower, it's not an apartment building, but it's just a little different. But there's still going to be people living there and contributing to their community, and I think that's more important to what we're trying to save here than what the buildings look like or what it looks like when you're driving 35 miles an hour and what you see out the window. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I love what you said because it's true. And the only reason this issue is the way it is, as far as I'm concerned, well, first I want to say to everybody, forgive me because I haven't done a lot of homework. I've had a few tragedies in my life the last couple of months, so forgive me. But you don't have to do homework to see the need and understand the need. But on things that you're saying, 100% true, but that falls on the leaders of all these committees. If they're so worried about who they're going to put next to over here, well, that offend Tom Jones, or that offend this one, and they come up with all these excuses. If they start really caring and putting people in these homes, whether housing buys them or whoever buys them, then the snobby people aren't going to want to buy the houses anyway. Because, God forgive me, it sounds like when I'm up here that I'm against people who have money. I'm not. I am against snobs. I am against bigots. And 9 times out of 10, they're trying to buy up. So they don't have to deal with that. Well, too bad. But if the leaders on these boards and on the zoning places, if they come in and they said, this is residential only, and you start putting people that look like me or are of my economic status, they may say, oh, no, we're not going over there. They need to start doing that. And they can. But they find every excuse under the sun to say why we can't, we don't have the money for this, we don't have the money for that. And while they're doing all their talking, people are dying. They are dying out there. And I am sick of it because Barnstable at one point was a community. Now, people might have come here, yes, because it was a beautiful place to, they say, visit, tourist place or whatever. But the leaders of the town allowed it to be an overall tourist thing, and they pushed everybody out. I mean, Rick and I were having a discussion a little bit earlier, and I really don't want to touch on that until it's time. But even that Rick and I were talking about, that someone told him something couldn't be done because of, I don't want to hear it. When the town needed to fix that waterway so the tourists will have a place to go, they put the little shacks out there, made it just lovely for the tourists. Make it lovely for the people that live here. You know, and I agree with you 100%. Time we turn around, there's a mansion here, a mansion there, and even the everyday people are afraid to want to live over there because they know how someone's going to treat them. I just pray for 10 of me's to live next to each one of those people. I promise they'll move first. I'm sorry, I'm done. I'm sorry. I don't know if that was inside of what you were feeling.
I just want to make a quick comment too, and then before we get to the other public comment. I read all these lists about what states where in a list, the states that are the cheapest to live in, and, all those various qualities, best educated, best health. And, every time I read it, Massachusetts is in the top 5 of the good things. And that is a strength the state has. I've lived in 4 states. I like Massachusetts the best. We've got a fabulous history. But as you point out, it's impossible. Boston is always one of the most expensive places in the country. It's oftentimes in second place, which I'm sometimes surprised at. And I think that times are changing. I think people are going to keep coming here because of the water, the ocean, and we're not going to be able to afford to have the people who serve those people here. We already can't. So what do we do about that? And there's a part of our society that anything that's worth bringing in money is the thing we want to push. So they want to push people with money to come here, and they don't want people without money to even find a place to live. They don't care as long as they're here doing it. So that's the problem we face here, is trying to help people that are supporting our system find housing, and it is a struggle. And I think that's your point from a slightly different angle, but I appreciate your comments. Other public comment? Sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Chris, for always supporting us and coming out here to voice your opinion. With the governor's report saying that we won't need X amount of housing in the next 15 years, what are we supposed to do within now and the next 15 years? Where is it that people are supposed to live within now and the next 15 years? And who knows what tomorrow may bring? Who knows what's going to happen next week, much less next 15 years? We're living in the now, today, the present time. And if we have a need for homes, for our community, for our generation to come, we can stand by and just say we're not going to need it. So what are we supposed to do? What are the young people of this community? What are the young people of this region
Supposed to do.
Are not only the young, because there are people, ageable people. You can't use age to define anyone. You could be 60 and you live to be 100. You could live another 40 years.
Yeah, that's right.
You could be 10 now when you don't live to see 15.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to sit around and say, oh, we don't need any more houses for the next 15 years, and if we can't even find places for the present population, are we just going to have people lying on the street, laying around everywhere? And it is a big domino effect on healthcare. Because if we don't have the rich people, I can tell you for sure, your rich neighbor is not going to come take care of you every day on a 9-to-5 job. And when you come to the hospital, the lines and the waits are going to be longer than 4, 5, 6 hours. So when you're sick and you go into a walk-in clinic, your regular PC, your regular primary, or a surgeon, and he doesn't have the staff, how are we going to get the service that we so needed? It is an elderly population, yes, but it's not only elderly get sick. We all get sick. And if at the hospital where I work now, we have so many travelers, so much people traveling that we have, because we don't, and with even the people that are traveling and they are making good money, they are still struggling coming here to pay the kind of rent that's here, especially over the summer months. I see people who take jobs down here and sleep in their cars, and I'm afraid, women, young ladies, I've seen it happen with my own eyes, co-workers. Come from out of state, come from elsewhere, and come here and stay in their car because they couldn't afford the rent that was here, not even for a room. What is the message that we're trying to send?
Right.
Are we going to try to work together as a community? All of us. It takes every last one of us.
Right.
It takes every last one of us input, because you're not going to cut your neighbor's lawn every day or every week or every month. Who is going to work in the supermarkets?
You were next.
We have to take all of this into consideration when we're talking about housing, because it affects every inch of our lives. I don't know what I'm going to be like in the next week. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I pray everything is okay. I pray that I'll be healthy and be in good strength. But I have no surety on that. So let's take into consideration if you have an elderly parents, or grandparents, or even an elderly friend, even if you can go 2-3 times a day and you have a job of your own, you're not going to be able to keep that up. You're going to be burnt out pretty soon. If you have to work your full-time job and still take care of your elderly parents, if you can afford to even pay somebody, if nobody's here, who are you going to pay? If you put them in a nursing home, that nursing home still needs staff. So I think we should all work together to make not only our community of Barnstable or Cape Cod and a whole, but our whole state, our whole country.
Yeah, we can forget that.
Thank you.
Next is Laura.
Thanks, Rick. I just want to say that I think that, well, I know that folks that are misinterpreting the housing plan, because if you read the plan carefully for the state, it doesn't say that we don't need any more housing. It says that all regions need to contribute to the housing that's needed across the state. It also says that that it does not reflect affordability or vacancy rates and other factors. It isn't a measure of the existing unaffordability, nor how many homes are available to be rented or owned, how many are seasonal homes. It just says that we need every region needs additional housing, and that there are some regions that need more than what is indicated in their 2.5%, because there needs to be more affordable housing and there needs to be more year-round housing. So if you read the report carefully, you would see that it does not give an out to the situation that we have now. We still have a crisis. We do not have enough housing. And not only do we need to find ways out of it without building, we need to build. We can't get out of it without new construction.
Right.
Thanks.
May I?
Okay.
And I just wanted to address something you said, not in a negative, but when you say
Your microphone on?
Hi, we on now? Okay, sorry. When you say they, that's the problem. The theys are the committees and the people and the powers, so-called powers that be in each place. We are the theys. Now, and I can appreciate what you're saying, we need to work together, but that's just it. Most of the people don't want to work together. They're well aware of what we need. Their agenda is not all, and I don't mean this to mean for everybody, but there are too many out here that are supposed to be for the will of the people that are not sitting on these committees to find out how we can make this happen for affordable homes. They're sitting on these committees to make sure the affordable housing doesn't come into their neighborhood. So I may be a little radical, but I would like to find, don't laugh, Rick, that ain't nice. But anyway.
Just a little radical?
A little. But I believe that, I wish I was an attorney, because I would find out exactly what we could do to say, no, you're not buying this. We're looking for affordable housing here. You're not putting your mansion up next door. That falls up on the zoning. I don't think it's fair for zoning to just tell, poor Tom Jones, I use this man all the time, but let's just say Tom Jones, for him to come want to build a mansion next to a low-income housing place. Next thing you know, his cousin's coming. There should be some regulations for them, too, which they talking about, let's put up to, well, we can just do 20 affordable housing. No, excuse me. We're going to put up 100 affordable housing and 20 rich houses. How's that sound? There has to be, because these people, there are too many out here. It's not that they don't want to work together. They don't want us here. And I'm here to tell you, we're not going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere, and I don't care how poor I am, or what I look like. I'm going to be a sore thumb to many people for a very long time. And we have got to change these committees. And I don't mean no disrespect to not one person, but I'll say this 100 times. How can somebody sit on a committee, whether it's zoning, medical, anything, if they have never experienced it? If they've never been hungry, if they have never looked under their cushion for a quarter, how in the world are they going to tell somebody how they should feel when they're hungry, or how they should feel when they don't have enough for a loaf of bread? You've had to be there. So we have got to come up with and I guess what I'm asking, I want everyone to be radical. I'm sorry, I do. Because I don't care what the person next to me thinks of me. Oh, Marianne, who cares? There's a person over there freezing, and they're dying. Just the fact that we are having a discussion about Marston's Mills and they want to put up swings, when everybody on these committees knows that land needs to go for people to have housing. That shouldn't even be a discussion. It really shouldn't. It shouldn't even be an issue. How does that even sound to the rest of the world? Well, why aren't you building homes? Well, they want a swing set for the little kids. Stop. I love my babies. I love kids. But I'll be doggone if I'm going to say that my 3-year-old needs a swing set on that piece of land. My 3-year-old grandson. I ain't got no 3-year-old. But my grandson needs a swing on that piece of land. You know what I mean? When there's families over here dying. And that's really what it comes down to. They're living in the street. So we need to be radical. We need to find out what the laws are, what we can do and what we can't do. I'm sorry, yes, time, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't no one ever feel funny about saying, Marianne, shut up. I'm being honest. Please feel free to say, okay, Marianne, be quiet.
No, we appreciate your passion.
No, it's not even that. It's not even that.
No,
It's just realism. It's real.
No, I understand. Make sure your microphone's on.
Well, they'll hear me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Charlie, are you next?
Yeah, I don't know.
sorry.
Okay,
I didn't know it was.
you're right. I agree with everything that Hilda and Chris and you and Marianne is saying, you know. And when a housing plan, when Barnstable has a housing plan that puts up 90% affordable and work housing and 10% market rate, then I will vote for it. We don't need building where 90% of the places built are going to be market rate. We need affordable and workforce housing, period.
Okay.
That's what I have to say.
Betty?
Yeah, a lot of good comments. I think Charlie sums it up. We need to flip it, and Marianne alluded to it too. That's what we need to do as a town. We need to focus on the affordable, and that's the whole purpose of this committee, is come up with strategies to do that. And Charlie's right, our housing production plan is all geared towards subsidized housing inventory, that 80% AMI and lower. That's where we need to be. Chris brings up an intriguing idea that there's speed relative to a neighborhood. And I find that intriguing, that the speed of a road would have an impact on how maybe that road is developed. And, I don't disagree with that you could use denser development. It actually might then slow down the speed on the road because you'd have so many cars coming in and out. You'd probably need stoplights, things like that. But that's intriguing about, speed negating the thought of being a neighborhood. And, we've done the ADUs by right. I think the state has now come, we've already done it, the state has. So we've already got duplexes throughout our neighborhoods. But who has the money to build that? Virtually nobody. I think I've heard $500,000 to build an ADU. That's pretty expensive. So we've got that. We've got the density there. But I think we need to just sit down and get these strategies going where we do exactly what Charlie says, and we focus on the housing for the people that need the housing and move on from there.
Okay, next person to public comment?
I did just want to add to what Hilda was saying, because from 2000 to 2023, we had 40% of our population working age, and now it's down to 28%. So we lost 25,000 people of working age in that time. And demand should have gone down, and rents went up. And just consider that, like, if you're adding housing, there are people that want to live here and work. We used to have 25,000 more, and just adding housing isn't necessarily going to affect rents the way we might hope, because there's a population of people that have to drive over the bridges to work here. They'd like to be here, but they can't afford it anymore. Councilwoman Lucky, I do think that there's probably a critical mass of density in a plot that houses a cape or a ranch right now that could make a new building affordable if you let someone do it, and if the infrastructure is appropriate, that it can handle that density. If it Finney's has the sewer, if they can handle that, I think that if you had three small condos and maybe even 3 one-bedrooms or studios in the basement, that could probably be profitable for someone to build. I agree that the ADUs are not profitable, and there's no reason for someone to build them right now, and we're not seeing that moving. So I think that's the question we need to ask in terms of possible upzoning. Thank you. I never signed it.
Any more public comment? I'm surprised, but that's all right. what we're trying to do today with the sheet that I passed out, and part of this is lifted from what Paula wrote a month or so ago, and part of it is what things we've been talking about otherwise, and or a rewording of some of Paula's to create a different level of clarity, for better or worse. So that the goal tonight is to try to see of this 9 things here, which we want to continue to have on the list, and hopefully the list will get down to 5, 4, 3 or something like that tonight, and then to try and discuss what kind of detail we want to add to these, the ones we pick for the council. And so that's a key progress for this committee. That's what we've been doing. And we've heard all the reasons for doing it tonight from the audience and the other members, so we've got something to do. So the first one I included, and I will admit that I was hesitant to include it, but I did talk to the chair of the council about it since the last meeting, and he thought it was an impossibility. But anyway, so it's there for us to talk about.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. Who said it was an impossibility?
Craig Tamish.
Oh.
Well, I don't think he used the word impossible. He used the reasons why it can't be done at this point. But anyway, so that's the first one we need to talk about. I was not going to put it in there because I thought there were problems like that, but because we have one member that feels very strongly about it, I didn't want to use my judgment and take it out.
Yeah.
I wanted the committee to deal with it.
Before we take it out, I'd like to, I reached out to David Anthony about this, and I'm waiting to see if there are, what kind of problems are involved with turning it into housing. And so I think that's,
Okay.
is everything okay? Whenever I hear that microphone, that walkie-talkie, I wonder if something's going on.
I was listening to you and not that. Maybe I was listening to the wrong.
So you know, I'm maybe, you know, we shouldn't talk about this until I hear from David,
Well, I still want.
unless somebody knows something.
Well, I know something, but anyway,
Mr. Chair?
Laura.
At the last meeting, if you read the minutes, we talked about the armory and that somebody, and I'm not sure who said it, said that it can be used for municipal purposes or a for-profit museum according to state legislation. So we talked about it last time and somebody had that knowledge. It says Chair Committee went over the 7 lists and asked for further discussion, and then that's what it said. So we talked about it last time, and it was off the list because unless you change the
I don't.
state
Who
legislation.
was the one who? I
I'm
need
the
to
one
hear
who's-
from
I said
the
that.
horse's mouth
No,
about
I said it.
about it.
I said it, Charlie.
Yeah, I
Because
want to hear from David Anthony.
Because that's what David Anthony said when he made a presentation to the town council.
Right.
Because it was supposed to be, was very carefully crafted to be used for municipal purposes. That couldn't get off the ground. And then the Witta Pirate Museum came in. Of course, they moved to the Zooquarium down in Yarmouth. But, so that why it was then approved for a for-profit museum. So that's where that came from. But it doesn't mean you can't go back to the state legislature again.
That,
It doesn't mean that. I would think your discussions with David Anthony would,
When did the state legislature pass that? Because that was the Noah shelter briefly for a while.
Well, it was a Noah shelter a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean.
it was recent because the Witter Museum was going to go, you know, they changed the legislation, or it had been changed from just municipal uses to include the museum. That's all.
That Craig brought up were the expenses that the money that needs to be
Sure.
raised to make it suitable to use because of issues with various things there. And of course, when you did it, you'd have to have staff so that the staff would, I think it'd cost $500,000 the first year
you know,
to have it open, but anyway.
yeah, well, for one, I had spoken with Kippy, and Mr. Diggs. And he was going to, at the time, he had some medical stuff he was dealing with. And then when he ended that, I went through things, so we didn't have a chance to really, but he was going to help with this. Now, my point, whether he helps with it or anybody else, see, this is what I am talking about with all the different issues. We talk about it needs to be this, it needs to be that. The building itself was put up. It's an armory, a military, am I correct? Unless I lost my mind. It was originally for human beings. Whatever has to be done, and now, oh, it's a museum, or we can take it back to this. That is my point. If somebody rich came in and said, oh, that would be a beautiful place for a museum, and I'll fix it. No, the town can fix it. People can fix it. And as far as sustaining, we didn't have a chance to talk about what our thoughts were and how we saw it, envisioned it being set up. But even the homeless, once they're together and once they get a little bit established, they can, whether it's paying $100 a month, they can start paying into it. They can take on some of the jobs, maybe not the medical, or, you know, we can have a doctor or someone for the medications, but there were jobs that they can take on. You know, that way they're not going someplace that the other person is feeling good about themselves. Oh, I helped a homeless person today. You know, they don't have to go through all of that. They're helping themselves. But to sit and say, there's a million reasons you can give why, oh no, it should be left alone. But I can give 1,000,001. Just the fact that it's keeping human beings from dying. How, there are some things that shouldn't even be questioned. It's like we just have to do it. Because I know the town of Barnstable will come up with 1,000 reasons, and not just Barnstable, other towns too. They'll come up with 1,001 reasons why it's too much, why we can't do this. Well, I'm just saying.
But you're making a critical point here. We're trying to pick things that the council will do. And
Well,
my
we'll make
guess-
the council
my
do it. I'm
guess
sorry,
is-
you know what, no
my-
disrespect to you or anyone else. See, that's I guess why I don't belong on a lot of committees. Because I do not believe in, well, because of the council, I'm gonna start coming to every council meeting. I wanna know why. You know, I don't care. You know, every town, every region gets funding. Okay, maybe not now with the new guy, but they normally get funding for so much money comes in for homeless, so much money comes in for all the different needs in any town. We all know that. You get funding, federal money, okay? Maybe if some of the federal money was actually used for what it was for, you know, I mean, most towns, including Barnstable, do just enough to say we did what we had to do. But if everybody on these committees saw homeless people as a #1 serious need, they'd help. But everyone doesn't. A lot of people feel, well, they're there for their own fault. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows why they're there. So if they start treating people like human beings, and it can be self-sustaining. You know, there are rules in place. Everybody that'll be there, after they're established, after a month, can start paying something. Most get some kind of subsidy, disability, anything. They can put a little bit into it. I know I'm talking too much, Rick. I'll hurry up. I'll watch the clock. But they can put a little bit into it. Or they can get a job and help. They can get a job there. I'm so tired of it. No, we're going to go through the council. Well, we'll go through the council.
Yeah, in Paula's list that we were working on the last time we were here, there's a line item for use designate town assets for the creation of affordable housing. And then we talked about adding,
That's in this list, too.
land and buildings. And the armory falls under the building, so I think it's already encompassed in the list that we have if the council so chooses to move forward with it.
Depends on how we word it. I mean, what I'm looking for is a motion from somebody here that we vote on whether to keep including this in our list or not.
Well, I,
Yeah, no, I think Laura brings up an excellent point, Rick, and Marianne. What you're getting at is using town assets. You know, this is a town asset. We shouldn't just, I think, be laser focused on one. We should be looking at the broad brush of town assets. And there's some town assets, frankly, that are unbuildable. And we ought to know that. And I think the recommendation ought to be to look at all the town assets and see which ones, like you talk about the Marston Middle School, which ones are buildable, and check them all. So I think focusing on just this one is going to take us away from our goal of looking broadly at the town assets.
Well, this isn't focusing on one because you have the same statement in here that was in hers. It's using one specific one
No,
that
that's
one member of this committee wanted on there.
And
If you wanna
maybe I'm
leave it there.
confused about the purpose. You want to do a homeless shelter, Marianne? Is that what you want to do, a homeless shelter?
That, and it would be from people who are from Barnstable. I'm not talking about people who live in Boston or somewhere else. This is for people, residents here, who can prove they lived here, they're from here, who are living in the street. And if they're there, you get the bed and the locker. The most important thing for anybody that's homeless is holding on to their belongings. If
Now,
they-
are you saying that the homeless shelter that currently exists is inadequate to the task? You're unhappy with the?
Well, no, I mean, I think it's a good thing, but they're in before dark and out before, you know, in and out.
They're not out, a lot of them are not out, they're there
No.
all day long.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, their belongings, if they could get established, I'm looking at a place where, you know, this is their residence for at least 3 months.
I think
And-
what you're looking at, because again, sorry to interrupt, but the state regulates that shelter, highly regulates that shelter, and they
and I
give
believe they
money
do.
to it too. I mean, operating a homeless shelter is not something that you can just go into. I mean, if you're suggesting the town is operating it, this is an extremely complex proposal that you're putting forth. And I think what you're talking about is what one of our local charities, Homeless Not Helpless, they buy houses and they provide exactly the type of housing that you're talking about.
But we never had
Okay,
a chance to put.
I'm gonna interrupt you because
Okay, but I just
we're
wanna
not gonna
say
spend the
one
whole
thing.
day.
No,
I
I'm
wanna
sure.
say something.
But
I wanna say something.
Go ahead,
I don't wanna
but I
spend the
wanna
whole
finish
day
this
talking
part.
about this. This is already included in number 4, use town assets for affordable housing. We don't need to have the Armory specified. We should not specify it, so we should take it out and
Okay,
move
but
along here.
I agree with you, but let me just say this. If we don't also specify it, they'll wipe it under the rug. But my point is, I think had we present, let me finish now. Had we presented, if I presented it correctly, and I should have done that, written it out what the whole proposal was. And then even the members on the board would have understood what we were looking at. I never realized I didn't have a chance to do that until you just asked your question.
Well, let me answer that.
Mm-hmm.
You are a convincing person who says a lot of valuable things. You come to a bunch of town council meetings, and when this comes up at the town council, you stand up and you tell them the same thing. We have to consider the Armory.
Do you think I won't?
No, I don't.
Oh,
No,
oh.
it's not a question.
I'm
saying
sorry.
This is not done because we don't include
I
it in our
thought
list.
you were
It is
thinking-
included in number 4, and you need to make that point.
Mm-hmm.
To use this one thing as one of our 3 or 4 things when it's included somewhere else, to me, is not the efficient use, and we're looking for things that will slide nicely through the council. There are other things here that won't, that if we're doing our job, we ought to go and lobby for.
No,
And I know you'll do it.
I will fight for everybody, what everyone has on this paper, that they feel. I really will.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go up there like I'm fighting for something that the committee is saying, we're not for that, that's her thing.
No, we're not saying
Yeah,
that.
okay, long as because, and don't get me wrong, I don't have no problem if everybody was against it, going fighting for it.
But believe me, I tried to use the armory once, so it is as if I'm opposed to it.
Okay, no, and I think at some point, I really should have explained how I envisioned it, and I'll hurry. That way, I think once I do, then everybody will understand.
Okay, yeah.
I agree number 1 is basically covered under number 4. I think if that is an asset that can be utilized, and for whatever reason, then all the power to us. I would suggest a motion to delete number 1 for that reason. But just want to make sure, Marianne, that I consider, and a lot of us consider, number 4 encompasses that number 1, if that's a possibility. So I'll put a motion forward to delete number 1 from our list.
Okay, and we'll just, when we talk about number 4, even with the town, we'll let them know
I agree.
Sure.
I agree with that.
Charlie gave a second.
We have a second? Did somebody, you seconded it, Charlie? Did you second this motion? Okay. Any further discussion?
Do I have to do a roll call because Gordon, if he's still with us?
Okay.
I would like to,
Paul.
See Gordon.
I wanted to make a comment before we voted. I just feel like we keep going backwards. We were at a point with Paula's list where we had 3 strategies with other, details or goals, 3 goals and then strategies underneath to reach those goals. And I felt that we were getting somewhere with that. And I feel like all of a sudden that's been pushed under the rug and we have a new list.
Most of it, maybe all of it's included in this list in a different way. Because I wanted to be more specific.
Well, Rick, it's a committee.
What?
It's a committee.
What is it?
The committee's supposed to make the decisions. We had
Yes, the
looked.
committee, they're listening to what you're saying. If you want to get the committee to make a change now, you can move it after we get done with the motion that's on the table.
No, I agree with what she's saying. What she is saying is that even when you made the list from the original one we had, it should have brought to the committee. That we're gonna make the list. Am I saying it correctly?
Mike,
Microphone.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry, guys. But I think that's what she was saying, because at first, we had a list. And when you condensed it and changed it and turned it into this list, before that was done, it should have been brought. Am I saying that right?
Well, we started out with a list that we got Paula's. I looked at Paula's probably 10 times, and I wanted to do it so that we could talk about the things individually and come to a decision. This is not the final way it's worded by any stretch of the imagination, and I said that earlier in the meeting.
So it's just,
But, whatever the committee wants, we got to vote on the motion that's on the floor
so
first.
it's not changed.
So is there
it's
any
just-
comment about the motion that is on the floor and that's been seconded? No. For that, we should go to a vote. So you're going to do a vote.
And the vote is to remove item 1
Right.
off of the list. Okay.
A lot of work for that.
Committee members. Counselor Schnapp.
No.
Counselor Lutke.
Yes.
Counselor Bloom.
Yes.
Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor Starr. Mary Ann Barboza.
As long as we know number 1 is going to be brought up for number 4, I'm good to go.
Hilda Hay.
Yes.
Rick Presbury.
Yes.
Laura Schufelt.
no.
It passes.
I hope they're not all this way. So now, Laura, do you want to make the argument?
Can you please speak into the microphone? You keep turning away from it. No one can hear you.
Did your comment mean that you want to move towards going back to Paula's list and discard this one?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have to vote on that.
Can we be more specific with which one of the lists are we talking about? So there is one that is
Okay.
1 to 9, and there is the
Let's take
committee.
a minute to review Paula's list.
I'd like to refrain from it being called Paula's list. This was a list. This was a summary of a discussion that we had as a full committee. This was not my authorship of these priorities. So please don't refer to it as my list. Thank you.
What should I refer to it as?
Original list.
It's
December
It
30th
is-
list.
December 30th list.
Was there any kind of vote that accepted this as what we're
No,
going to concentrate on versus the other
no,
list?
there's been no decision in that
Okay.
effect.
There's been no decision, but we went through this list last time with a continuation that we were going to continue it this time. And so it's just, if we go to a different list, what are we going to do next time? Go to a
Through
different
this
list
list
after that?
too. So this list existed before, so either way, it's
Well,
the same
maybe I
argument.
just want to get,
What?
I want to move this forward, and it seems like we're going backwards instead of going forwards.
I think both lists have recommendations for this committee. The list that is the one we're going off the 1 through 9 list has a number of issues that we've talked about as a committee already. It encompasses almost everything we're talking about as possibilities going forward. And I see this as a more simplified way of going to exactly what we're talking about and recommending to the town council. So I suggest we continue
They're
on
both
with
the same thing.
the
I
list
don't see
here
much
from 1 through
difference.
9 and use that as what we're voting on.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with that. I think the two lists are so complementary and very near identical that as we work through it, we can bring the ideas of one list into the other. I don't think it has to be either or. I mean, if Rick is proceeding through this 1 through 9, we've already had a motion on that. I don't know why we can't proceed with what Rick has provided here and just bring the ideas from the other list into the discussion.
So our charge was to come up with 3 strategies. The list from December 30th has 3 strategies, and then underneath that, it has specific actions. The list of 9 things are 9 actions. All of them except are encompassed, or most of them are encompassed in the other one. I think it's a matter of, do we then move forward 8 or 9 actions, or do we do what we were charged to do and bring forth 3 strategies with goals underneath them?
May I,
As I go back, there was no vote on these 3 strategies that were brought in addendum to what we've been talking about. Okay, if some of these issues would like to be put on the other list, then so be it. Then do so. Most of these are complementary. I see a lot of the language in Paula's former list is that is much more succinct in the 1 through 9 categories, exactly what we're planning on doing. So I suggest we allow any further from one list to the other can be actually added or subtracted now and put forward.
well, as,
When
oh,
I
I'm sorry.
When I listened to
Okay.
Betty's comment, it was exactly what I was trying to do. I thought that the previous list was so ambivalent in some ways that the council would not necessarily be as inclined to do the things in it that we want, but it would be other things, if at all. And so I tried to make it simple and clear. And I could very well be wrong. I'm not defending what I did, but I'm telling you why I did it. And I would rather go to somebody and ask them to do something specific than to give them a concept of what I want a result to be and let them figure out how to do it, because that hasn't been a bad history of our town and other towns as well.
Can I?
Yeah.
My turn. When you look at the list, I mean, I agree with what you were saying in the beginning. You wish somebody would have came to you, but when I look at 1 from 9, to me, it's just the 3 strategies. He just opened them up. In other words, if you were on the computer and you opened it, then it would go 1, then A1 or 2. You know, it's just opening it up and breaking it down, because the fear does become, if they're not opened up, then the council or whoever else can interpret those strategies any kind of way. The way this is right now is we are talking about town assets. We are talking about boom, 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 boom. You know, so, and I actually think we're getting somewhere. I mean, I do. They gave us enough time, so we're getting there, you know. And let's be honest, if the town or anyone else had a history of actually, when we decide something, going out and building and going out and doing it, we'd be a lot further. The problem is, we know they're not. Even no matter what we decide, we're going to have to push them down the hill to get them to, well, that sounded terrible, but roll them down the hill to get them to move, you know, so.
Okay, I think maybe we need a definition of a goal and a strategy. Right now, we're down, if you want to call these goals, because I think if you look at the 2 lists, maybe we're at the goal on the list that Rick is looking at. We're down to 8 goals on there, okay? Because we just eliminated number 1 because it was wrapped up in 4. We have 7 goals on the other list. So why don't we just talk about goals? Because Marion is right. If you're too overarching, and Rick mentioned it, then nothing happens. So if we can, I think we could all agree, if we want, let's talk at the goal level if we're trying to get things done. There's 7 on one list, 8 on the other. Let's see how they compare, where the differences are, and focus at that level. That might be able to allow us to move forward.
Well, what is the wish of the committee? I'm certainly not going to suggest what we do.
Excuse me, I just have an important phone call, a text. I have to go take
Okay.
it, okay?
I mean, I want us to all agree and to be able to follow up whatever we do here in talking to council members, 5 of whom are part of this group, about getting this stuff done. And I don't want complicated language that could be interpreted more than one way. And, but that's just my preference. Yeah.
I see us going through this list, 1 through 9, and deciding yes or no on each of them, and then coming to the next meeting where we see which ways what is left can either be combined or can be said in a simple way. I think these are simple, straightforward points that are being put forward. I think in the other copy, it's more of a, I agree with you, it's more of an ethereal 10,000-foot overlook. But these are specific examples of what we would like to see done. And frankly, I think we should go through this list. And how many more meetings do we have in this committee?
Well, we don't know yet, but we've only got we've only got a month left.
Yeah, I think we ought to
Yeah.
come up with some kind of, what we've been tasked to do is to come up with 3 or 4 strategies that we'd like to pass on to the town council on these issues.
Yeah, we have one other job after this.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily have to do it by the end of March. I talked to the council chair today, and he's not exactly sure of what the definition of what else we had to do is, so he was going to do that and come to that conclusion. So I think that that's going to be a April strategy, and this certainly has to be done. That's why I made this list, because I felt we were getting to the point where we had to come to conclusions. And I think certainly Laura agrees with me. That's what she said, and we both agree with that part of it. we have to get the conclusions very soon. And so if we have, let's say we have one meeting after this, and we come to some conclusions, and then maybe we have a meeting after that, and then finish them off, and look at what we did, and make sure it's all right, and then that's it. But that's 2 more meetings in a short period of time, given the problem we have getting a scheduled meeting sometimes.
Okay, with that time frame, I think we should get on with it and come with specific choices that we see as the most important to pass on to the council.
I
And
agree.
That's what we're doing now. I think we should move forward.
I hesitate to vote on something like this because I don't want to divide the group into two. If people are okay with moving in that direction, they should say so. If they're really opposed to it, they should say so, and we have some more discussion.
You can, from either list, you can pick things that you would like to have voted on or added to the list or subtracted. And I think if there's something on one that's not on the other, then let's put it up for a vote and then move on from there.
So I guess we're moving along. Number 2, create regulations limiting short-term rentals.
At the last meeting, we used the language, consider regulations and other policies focused on short-term rentals to the extent they impact year-round affordable housing. I would move that we accept that language.
Second. I'll remove that second. I don't think there needs to be a clause in between it. Create regulations for short-term rentals. I think it's been clear through both the governor's task force that this is one of the main issues causing a significant decrease in year-round affordable units. And I suggest that we just say the council to create regulations on short-term rentals.
I withdraw my motion.
So there is no motion at this point. Does anybody have questions or comments about number 2?
Yeah,
What it
I
means
like what John said. Create regulations on short-term rentals. Right now it says limiting. I don't think we need a modifier in there. Just create regulations on short-term rentals. We have no regulatory structure whatsoever. All we do is collect data. I think we ought to have a regulatory structure on short-term rentals. It was identified in the governor's report, and it certainly has an impact. Maybe it's a small percentage, but we are talking about small percentages that could bring us over and help us out a lot.
I'd be in favor of removing the qualifier limiting and just going with create regulations on short-term rentals.
Okay. We all set with that one? Number 3, I did a little research on number 3.
You got to vote on it.
We got to vote on it. All those in favor?
I withdrew my vote. Did you make a vote? Was yours a motion?
I will motion. I motion that on number 2, the language should read, create regulations on short-term rentals.
Do we have to do a roll call on every one of these?
There was a second. Gordon? Is Councilor Starr still with us?
No, Counselor Starr is no longer in the meeting.
No.
Do we have a second?
I don't believe I heard a second, but I might not have heard it.
I second.
Will there be discussion on the item? Will there be
Okay, all those in
discussion on,
favor?
will there be discussion on the item?
I say that again?
Discussion. Usually there's a motion, a second, and
I thought there
discussion.
was a second.
Okay.
Who seconded it? Okay, that's right. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
We haven't had any discussion on the item.
Okay.
Okay. May we have discussion on the item?
Oh, yes, you certainly can.
Okay. We have been meeting for many months, and we have had conversations ranging from whether the Hyannis Armory should be a shelter to other issues. But as far as I'm concerned, we have not had any fulsome conversation about regulations on short-term rentals at all in this committee. We have now lost 2 members of our committee. I thought there was an intent that we wanted to get the full representation of the committee to vote on any of these items. So I'm beginning to think it's a little premature. Last meeting I offered, or between Laura and I, we offered a modification to recognize that there are probably some issues that we can discover on short-term rentals. I think that you need to, if you want to be bold, you need to say that you're going to create regulations that would change our zoning ordinance and general ordinance regarding short-term rentals, because you can't do one without the other. It's a fairly significant commitment for the town council to move forward on regulating short-term rentals. So I just want everyone in the room and the audience listening to be aware of what that means. I don't think create regulations on short-term rentals really speaks to much of anything.
I would have thought the council themselves understood that.
The third strategy on 12/30/24 list is adopt revised zoning and general ordinances to increase the supply of year-round and affordable housing. I think short-term rentals fits into that.
This is just a recommendation that the council take this up as an issue to adjudicate on short-term rentals. I think there's become a larger percentage of those who are paying attention to this issue, that this has created a problem, and even the governor's report has made clear that this is also something. We're only asking the council to look to regulate short-term rentals. We're not telling them how to do it.
Well, and honestly, I got a lecture about not telling the council what to do the last time. That's why I made it simple. But, I'm not on the council. I've never been on the council.
But I disagree with a little bit. Now, you got a lecture about not telling the council what to do? See, and that's part of my problem too, because we may be on a committee, but we're still residents. And the council and every other committee, just like this committee, work for the people. And they're there for the people. So it is still the job of the residents. And you as a resident, I believe, have every right to say they should be doing A, B, C, and D. And I'm sorry. If I stand before that board, that's what I'm fighting for, because they're representing us. And
Well,
as,
I purposely, making these simple and short, and I think I said this at the beginning of the meeting, we have another meeting. If let's say we approve some number of these, we have, at the next meeting, we define it some more if we want to. I'm not opposed to that, but because of the complexity of what we're talking about, it's easy to give a reason for not doing any of these because there's complexity to it. And it is tough to get it done, a lot of it. And so it doesn't bother me to approve something where we're going to define it in some detail afterwards. I would actually kind of prefer to do that, but it may get us in trouble. But I'd kind of prefer to do that myself. Not personally, but as a committee.
to the council, is there any way that we can know when they're going to be put forth? Or is it all at one time at the end, or has there been a discussion with the council? I know that's
I'm
probably
not
an
aware of
ignorant,
any
that's probably
discussion, but I'm
ignorant question, but.
I'm not aware of any discussion, but I'm assuming after the end of March, we turn in some paper to the council chair, and he does with it what he wants.
See, that's where we're going to run into our problem, because all of this, if at the end of this whole series, we put forth recommendations, this could have been a waste of time if the council's sitting there and says, no, we don't like none of this. Sometimes they can create committees to give the appearance to the public that they're trying and that we're this. So when they go to make their decisions,
Well, I've also said that if we want these things to happen, we have lobbying to do afterwards.
oh, no, no,
We can just go home and watch TV, but if we do,
that's automatic.
there will be less done than if we lobby it.
Well, but that's my point. How, when it's turned in, how soon as the chair will they let you know when they've reached a decision or any conclusion they come to on what we put forth?
I have no idea, but they'll do it publicly, so we'll know.
Mm-hmm. And I really think since we're on a committee and we're putting these recommendations forth, before they come to their conclusions, I think we should be having a meeting with them to argue. I don't think, I mean, each item, how can they make a decision without talking to us to find out what we meant on, say, on number 6?
Well, don't forget, 5 of our members are part of the council.
And no disrespect to them, but they may get there and forget, and so what? I mean, I don't mean no disrespect to none of you, but as a resident, and I'm speaking from this half, you know, when part of the problem is when a lot of these, and we've been dealing with different councils for forever, and some of them are great,
Sorry,
but when they get,
we need, I'd like to move the question.
okay, let me
Really
just finish. Let me just finish my statement. When they get into the room with some other people, they may feel pressure. So even the council members that are here, when they get there, they may change. That's the point I was trying to make.
So it's been a long time. Can you repeat your,
No, move the
Wasn't
question
mine.
requires a vote of the committee.
what?
Move the question requires a vote of the committee. I'll second that.
Okay, on number
So number 2,
2.
and basically
No, the question to move has to be voted on by the committee.
Yeah, that's
She made a motion to move the question, so we need a roll call vote on moving the question.
It's been moved in second to move the question. We need to vote on that.
Committee members, Rick Presbury,
Yes.
Councilor Paula Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilor Betty Lutke,
Yes.
Councilor Charlie Bloom,
Yes.
Councilor John Crow,
yes.
Councilor Gordon Starr, Mary Ann Barboza, Hilda Hay,
Yes.
Laura Schufelt.
Yes,
It passes.
Is there a motion to vote on number 2?
I'll put a motion in to, with the language, ask the town council to create regulations on
But
short.
the question has been moved based on your original motion that we need to
On
take a
original
vote.
Okay, good, thanks.
Got to take a vote on create regulations on short-term rentals.
Committee members, Councilor Paula Schnapp,
No.
Councilor Betty Lutke,
Yes.
Councilor Charlie Bloom,
Yes.
Councilor John Crow,
Yes.
Councilor Gordon Starr, Mary Ann Barboza, Hilda Hay, Rick
Yes.
Presbury,
Yes.
Laura Schufelt.
no,
It passes.
Okay. Number 3. I don't have to read it to you. Well, I will for the audience.
to make a motion.
I'm just reading it, what it says partly for the audience. Establish a transfer fee on certain levels of real estate sales. Is there a motion?
Before we do the motion, I don't know which place this would put in, because I see number 3 and number 6 is actually could be combined?
No.
No.
No, I don't think
Okay.
so. I did some research on number 3 whenever you want to hear it.
What's the purpose of the transfer fee?
In 19, let me get my years right, in 2023, there were about 135 approximately, I don't remember the exact number, I've got it written down, of houses over $1 million, $1 million or more sold. And we talked about a 0.5% fee, and that would raise a considerable amount of money, you know, for affordable housing. And, you know, and maybe it should say that here, and maybe that's your point. Yeah. And so my concern, the reason I did the research is that we had some conversation about this before, and there was some objection to it because they felt that people as citizens in the community would object to this because it's a significant amount of money, even with $1 million sale, because a lot of people selling $1 million house aren't wealthy. They didn't pay $1 million for the house. They may have paid $300,000 for it, and it's now worth $1 million, and they're going to pay a significant fee
No.
of $5,000 or whatever, and they might object.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, absolutely.
The transfer fee is on the amount of the sale above whatever the floor is. So if it's $1 million sale, they wouldn't pay anything. If it was $1 million floor, they don't pay starting from zero. You start paying from above what the $1 million is.
Oh, so it's nothing at $1 million.
Right.
So that'll cut way down on the amount of money.
Well, I think the basis of what we had proposed was to suggest to the town council that they submit a home rule petition to place a transfer fee on certain real estate for the benefit of affordable housing. So the funds go into that. And then not have specifics, because that then gets into policy. The policy of what the floor is, what the percentage is, et cetera, then would be up to the council. So we would suggest that they do the home rule petition so there is a transfer fee, and then the details, the policies, and we can certainly advocate for what we think is right, but I for one do not want to get locked into a percentage and a floor at this. I don't think we're prepared to do that or educated enough to do it.
Yeah. So do you, one more thing, do you want to reword this to make that correction?
Right. I would use what was in the suggestions from December 30th. Submit home rule petition to place a transfer fee on certain real estate transactions for the benefit of affordable housing.
Okay, so number 3, we would change to the Paula version, right?
December 30 version, and add for the benefit of affordable housing. I'd make a motion.
We're basically using, if you don't mind, we're basically using the other text here that was created by Paul originally. It's number 1. And then we're going to add of that statement, for the benefit of affordable housing.
And change tax to fee. It's a fee,
Change
not a
tax to fee, yeah.
Okay. So we have a new,
We're basically replacing number 3 with the language from number 1 on the increased revenue for affordable housing on the prior document.
okay.
Second.
Is there a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Discussion.
Discussion. I'm bringing up these points before on this one, and I think it's a delicate issue, especially now, considering the costs that we're going to be asking and the burdens we're asking our residents to pay for the CWMP cost for creating of fixing our sewage problems. And I also see that there's a likelihood in the near future, according to, if you were here for the arguments that Mark Milne made, is that after a certain period, say 2027, we're going to be looking at additional funds for that sewer project that are going to ask a significant increase in an override, or to ask for an override. And my only issue with this right now, I think it's ill-timed for the residents that will be asked to pay this. I think everything at once is going to be something that, if we're asking to try to get an override, I think this will be detrimental to that effort, personally.
I think I'll agree with you on that because property taxes has gone up significantly. I'm paying twice what I used to pay. And I think it would be putting a lot more pressure, more stress on folks, especially even those who, even though you may have bought your house and for $10 and now you can sell it for $20, if you didn't maintain it, you still had to do all the maintenance and every upkeep to it for it to be able to achieve whatever it would worth now. And I think everything, we pay so much taxes in this state that I am worried that that one will pose a problem. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm completely in support of this. There's been so much appreciation in real estate values, and you talk about your taxes. It's all based on sales. There's nobody out here coming up with some mysterious things. It's the sales. And I think everybody, I inherited my house. My parents bought it for $17,000 in the 1960s. It's now worth, I think on my appraisal, $1.7 million. So I would have no problem if I decided to sell. And remember, we're talking about people who are selling. So if you're selling, you can share the profit. You've had enormous gains here, enormous gains. So this is absolutely something that I think we should do. And if you don't want to pay it, then don't sell and stay here. And if you want to sell, it's going to have to happen. I think it's a really good way to increase our income. And it's, again, if you're not selling your house, then you're not paying this. And again, the details would have to be worked out, whether it's the buyer, the seller, that kind of thing.
I think what Councilor Lutke said is an important point, that this is a transfer fee. It's based on a transaction of real estate, so it's not impacting current residents. So it's difficult to know where the fee falls on the buyer or the seller, but it also would be designed to only impact sales over a certain amount. And it would go toward, based on the amended version, directly into creating or preserving affordable housing, which we have identified as a huge need on this committee.
This is a weird one for me because, number one, I really don't know that much about it. I'm learning as we went, but I look at it two ways. Although, obviously, I always want money to go in some kind of trust for low income and for homeless. But at the same time, I'm thinking if someone is selling a home and they have 5 offspring and they're sharing that money or leaving that money or want to leave something to their offspring, what does that do? You know, if they're trying to, maybe if they're just selling it to give their offspring a start, and what does that do? You know, there's so many ways to look at that. So I think I'm going to sit this one out. Do we all have to vote on this? Yes? Oh, Lord.
You can
Okay.
abstain, you can abstain.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, you're just voting on the concept of it.
Okay.
The idea of it. It's not necessarily saying those that own a $500,000 house are going to be, charged the fee. That's
Yeah.
up to some other entity to decide.
Yeah.
So you're just
'Cause
voting on the
I can definitely see
concept.
both sides of this. You know, I really can.
So I'm kind of ambivalent on this one. I agree with both sides here. If you were going to sell a house for $1.5 million, just hypothetically, $1.5 million and you were going to start charging over $1 million and you were going to charge 0.5%, that'd be $2,500. And, you know, that seems like kind of a small amount of money to somebody selling a house for $1.5 million, you know, and, you know, so that bothers me. But then what you say bothers me too, that I do think that with all the trouble that's coming forward with us on the sewer systems, it's going to be a tough time, and people are going to be very sensitive to it. And I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
I do agree with you. One other thing to just another point to make is that this will increase the average cost of housing, whether it be $1 million houses or $10 million houses. It's another cost that will drive up the cost of home ownership here. Now, it's not going to, of course, under the ceiling or the bottom level, say it's $1 million. It's not going to affect the average person. But the Cape has gotten so out of whack property-wise, is that this includes a large percentage of the homes here on the Cape now. If you actually use the $100 million as your level, the cutoff,
floor.
as your floor. Move the question.
Second.
Any further discussion? Oh, you can't hear, huh? Okay, so a vote?
We have to vote on the move the question.
Committee members. Sorry about that.
Just one clarification, we're using the language on what was formerly known as Paula's thing. It basically language is correct. Submit home rule petition to place a transfer fee on certain real estate transactions to
Benefit.
affordable housing.
Yeah, I'll read it again before we vote on it. We're just moving the question now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilors Schnapp,
Yes.
Lutke,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Starr. Committee member Mary Ann Barboza. Hilda Hay.
Yes.
Laura Schufelt.
Yes.
Chair of Committee Rick Presbury.
Abstain. What?
This is not the question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, this was just to move it.
That was the wrong place. Yes.
Yes? Okay, it passes to move. Now, the motion is submit a home rule petition to place a transfer fee on certain real estate transactions for the benefit of affordable housing. Is that correct? Committee members, Rick Presbury,
Yes.
Councilor Paula Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilor Betty Lutke,
Yes.
Councilor Charlie Bloom,
Yes.
Councilor John Crow,
No.
Councilor Gordon Starr, Committee member Mary Ann Barboza, Committee member Hilda Hay,
No.
Committee member Laura Schufelt.
Yes.
It passes. 5 yes.
Just for those of you who are curious, the reason I changed my vote is I decided that I'd let the council decide. What? Not that that'll be one of our, or 3 or 4, I don't know. You know. Use town land, town assets, land in part for affordable housing.
Second.
Discussion? Where are we?
Committee members, Rick Presbury,
Yes.
Councilor Paula Schnapp,
Yes.
Counselor Betty Lutke,
Yes.
Counselor Charlie Bloom,
Yes.
Counselor John Crow,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon Starr, Committee Member Mary Ann Barboza, Committee Member Hilda Hay,
Yes.
and Committee Member Laura Schufelt.
Yes.
It passes.
Optimize state and federal funding for affordable housing.
You know, this one is on both of the lists that we look at,
Yep.
and I don't think that it really is. I think this is something a rational municipality does. I don't think this is a strategy or a goal. Why wouldn't one optimize funding? I just think we ought to strike it.
Rick? I think that we need to put it in there because CDBG can be used for so many other things, which it usually is. And so to say that we want to optimize the for affordable housing, I think that's the difference. It's not that we don't want to optimize it for any, but I think to be clear that we'd like to use it for have it directed towards affordable housing.
Can you educate us on how it's been used here?
It's been used to do facades for Main Street. It can also do economic development things. It also can, it's pretty much been what's been used to pay for all the ramps for all the public buildings, accessibility, and lots, I don't know what else, but
Who applies for that funding, Laura? Or is it just given based on something?
there's applications. In fact, there's a public hearing coming up on the administration plan for it, where they decide where it's going to go. I'm talking about the planning department. So usually for like the facades for Main Street, Hyannis, it's the bid that applies for it, I believe.
Is anyone with any housing credentials applying for it?
It has been used for some acquisition from nonprofits. I think I've been advocating for it to be used for homeowner rehab for income qualified folks to do code repairs. That's one of the basic things that it does in pretty much every other community but us.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the mechanism for this. If you have the town council vote on this, we can't really direct a nonprofit to do something. I mean, because you
No.
mentioned the bid. The bid is applying. Who else, I'm confused of the mechanisms, how this would be executed. And going back to what Rick had always said, let's not recommend things that can't be executed. How would this, please explain how we execute that. I like it. Your explanation is fantastic, but how do we make that happen?
So there's two different types of recipients of the money. The town, who can then authorize programs like a rehab program, or applications, the X amount, when they do the administration plan, they'll say X amount of money is dedicated towards economic development. And so then outside folks apply for it. And I can ask for, housing funds for any number of different programs that would fit under it. It was used to pay for the creation of affordable accessory units in a forgivable loan. So there's a variety of things that can be used for. Again, the town can run programs. Right now, the town's program is being run by consultants. And then there's also applications can be, so there's like a funding round.
So you're saying the town applies for this? The town is responsible, and then
town
once the town receives it, other people come to the town
We get an allocation annually
based on what?
per capita we get, from the federal government, we get an entitlement amount of money annually.
So we just get it.
Yes.
We're not doing anything other than existing and,
Existing as the size, as an entitlement community. It's a
okay,
certain
so how
size.
much do we get?
Yeah, about $300 to $400,000 annually.
Is this the old CDBG money?
Okay,
It is CDBG, yes.
all right, so then I think we should be more precise then in terms of an executable strategy or goal would be to assign a certain percentage, kind of like we do with the CPC funds, I would think. Can we make it more specific? That 50, because we discuss a housing crisis, should 50% go to housing?
I don't know, it
What
is,
are they doing now? I mean,
that's, I just don't know.
are they not optimizing it now?
They're not optimizing it for housing now.
But they're doing it, they've run a rehab program for years, haven't they?
No, they don't run here.
Oh, they don't?
No.
So it's
This
just
is my
the
issue.
accessory apartments, how long they've been doing that? I don't have any idea, so, I mean,
2000? No, maybe later than that, but somewhere around, maybe 2006, since then.
do they spend a significant amount of money on that?
No.
Well, my,
So
oh,
optimized
sorry.
is gonna,
He won't look this
it's
way.
gonna make a change.
Yes.
Can you
guess
just tell
my-
me what the acronym stands for?
Community Development Block Grant.
Should
Okay,
we
I guess what
specifically
my-
say that
Okay.
in this question?
No, go ahead, baby. Go ahead. That's
You
all
know,
right.
It's-
identify it as the community.
It was identified in the 1230 as one of them. I optimized state and federal public housing,
Because I'm all for optimizing federal funding
CDBG,
for
Gateway
affordable housing.
initiatives.
Okay, but here's my problem, and I guess what I want to know is when you say it's for housing, right? And it goes to the state and they look at what we get. But if this is being used for everything, you've named everything from the flying kite to housing. So the state sees this and says, okay, well, you're already getting that much for affordable housing, and then you're using it for other things. So what, maybe, I am ignorant on this because I want to know exactly what part of affordable housing. And I understand all those other things you talked about are definitely needed, rehabs, ramps, and everything else. But when you put it under affordable housing, and then somebody looks at a list, we're already getting 400,000 for housing, they don't need no more. So I'm concerned. You know, don't call something something, and then it gets labeled down the road when we need more money. Why did they do that? Why is it being listed affordable housing if it's being used for everything else? Because if they actually are listing it for that and they're actually giving that money for affordable housing, we wouldn't have as big as a problem as we do.
There are several things that it can be used for, and the town decides annually in an administrative plan how that money's going to be spent.
Then I wish they wouldn't call it housing, say we're going to use it for rehab, or we're going to use it for whatever. So when anybody, I don't care if it's 10 years down the road, looks at a list, they won't see something that says affordable housing, because there will be somebody out there who will say they got X amount of dollars for affordable housing. So if it's nice and sweet and kind and clear, then call it something else. That's my only problem. If it's not for housing, don't say it is.
I just had a theoretical question. Could the homeless not helpless, could they apply for a piece of this grant money?
They can. It does come with strings.
Of course it does.
So tell me if I'm wrong,
disrespect to you, I'm
but my
sorry.
inclination is that, while it's not an awful lot of money, it's something the council would probably do.
To the extent that they can, it's
Well,
it's
easy for them to
administrative.
do.
But it's administrative. It's not the council that makes the decisions.
Who makes the decision?
Town manager.
Well, okay. But I mean, it's not a difficult thing to do. You're not spending more taxpayers' money. You're not, you know, so do you think this would happen if we approve it?
I think it would move it forward, yes.
I mean, that's my impression. That's why it's a small amount of money, but
Wow.
things that are more likely to move forward are things that we like.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of don't want to be only pursuing things that we think the council's going to approve. I think we need to push the envelope, and if we don't push the envelope, it's not going to get done. I know you usually push the envelope, Rick, so I'm just saying that realistically, yes, some of these may not go past, but if we don't put them on the list.
I don't want to say something that undermines everything we've said since the beginning, but there's no law that says we have to only do 3 or 4. We could do 6 and get away with it. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, if we decide to do that, they can tell us we're jerks and not paying attention or something, but they've still got the information. Yeah.
The number 5 says optimize state and federal funding for affordable housing. Are you arguing for prioritize versus optimize? Because I think what Betty said originally is I think that's something that goes without saying, that we'd optimize whatever we can get for whatever funding we can get. Like I said, I think we already do that. Okay, but you're asking for these CDGB funds that come in to prioritize housing on those funds. Am I getting that wrong?
I think that's one example. The other examples are, you know, the Gateway, incentives for Gateway, and if we become a seasonal community, I don't want to list that because we're not a seasonal community, but there'll be funding for that we can either ignore or go after.
They used to use it for different things in my day, and so that was always frustrating to me.
Yeah.
So this just takes that away. I mean, in theory, it would be all used for housing.
Not necessarily all, but
Optimized,
optimize.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, you said you were calling me, and
Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you. No, I just want to be clear on this. I really do. Now, like you said, the only thing that I heard that it will do for housing is what you were saying, helpless, not homeless. I mean, whatever the name of that, okay. But strings attached. Okay, I guess I have a problem with anything that has the name that it's working for affordable housing. And it's not. And obviously, the name affordable housing gets some attention. That's why they're using it, to get money. And if it's no big deal, then change it. Put for ramps or for rehabs. But I take it very personal, because that is why people here who are struggling, homeless people and everything else, because someone looks at something, well, they're getting this much, they're getting that much, and in reality, they're not. So, you know, I'm tired of people being used in whatever way. You know, just like there are some fundings that go out for people of color. You get a certain amount of this, you get a certain amount of that, you get a certain amount of whatever. But ask the people who are living in that town if they feel like they've been treated equally in that town. But yet, like I said, a lot of things have changed over the past whatever, but there's funding coming in all kind of places. And ask, really, I do that. Ask all the people if they feel they're being helped by what's supposed to be out there for them. The answer is no. So why are we using affordable housing?
So is there a motion to close the discussion on this subject?
Of course.
Well, I kind of liked what John said, and I don't know if Laura would be amenable to it. changed optimize to prioritize. Laura, would that be okay with you? And I really like what she said. I think this would highlight it. I think this is very important. And Marianne, I think, I don't think this would hinder other activities. Every source of grant money, especially with the current administration when we don't know what's going to go on, I think every bit of grant money needs to be looked at very carefully. And I think the optimizing, or I think maybe prioritizing housing, making sure we market to those folks that are out there, would be a wise choice.
That's why I was asking, because, I want to be educated on everything that's here. I don't deal with this stuff every day.
Thanks.
I don't deal with this every day, and that's why I was asking what actually goes to housing. And if the majority of the monies that are coming in from this particular state and federal funding, if the majority goes all around the circle, then why make affordable housing stand out? Unless they do. Go ahead.
I asked Laura while we were just discussing a little bit here. These funds that are given from the state
And the feds.
and the feds
Just
aren't earmarked for affordable housing. They're not. What are they earmarked for? Maybe she can make it.
Community development, which is a big umbrella. One piece of it is affordable housing. What I was trying to convey is that we would ask the town or the town council to prioritize those funds for affordable housing instead of all the other things that they can be used for.
So is that choosing to use the word prioritize?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So affordable housing gets a bigger piece of the pie.
Yes.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
If they're the biggest piece of the pie, I am too. But if they're, when you were saying earlier, you talked about all the different things, and if housing was on the bottom of the list, I think whatever is the largest thing should be the wording, because it's very deceiving. And even if the public, residents, were to read this or see it or looked at some numbers, and they saw this was out there for affordable housing, they're going to expect all that money for affordable housing. And in fact, it's not true. I mean, if we're here for the people, and I know it bothers some people, it's like, oh my goodness, let's just get over this. If we're here for the people, we have to be here for the people. And the everyday person needs to understand what things are for. They shouldn't have to read something and say, oh, go talk to a counselor to get it. Because if I were to read this, and I'm sitting in the audience, and I hear you say 400,000, whatever you said, whatever the numbers are, is going towards, from federal and stuff, is, I would think it's only going towards housing, if I were to read it like this, if I was sitting in the audience. So I think it's only, it makes it above board. So, and I'm just being honest. I know it can drive people crazy, but you need to look at me as a resident, because that's what I am, and that's how I would read it.
Are we ready?
I'm not sure that this is kind of moved away from the original intent, which was a subcategory of increasing revenue for affordable housing. I think the language of prioritize state and federal funding for affordable housing is a little misleading, given all the federal and state funding we have. So I'm not sure at this moment what we're talking about really makes as much sense. Obviously, what Laura has talked about in terms of directing CDBG to housing is, something that we might want to be very specific about. But as she mentioned, it goes through a very public process in which the community actually comes forward and offers its priorities. And then the town administration makes determinations on what those priorities are. So the council is sort of a little bit outside of the CDBG process directly. but this was supposed to capture other areas too. So, and given the time, I'm not sure what the intent of the chair is, but I will have to be leaving at 5 o'clock. And so I don't know if you're going to just do half a list today, or
Well, then I-
you're going to take a vote.
It'd be nice if we could settle this particular question. We don't
Well,
have
if I
time
can
for
get,
another
I'll
one.
just say a real quick
We have
last
to, we
moment.
have to schedule our next meeting, which is very important, we do that, so.
Yeah.
If we can come to a conclusion of this question right away, even after your comment, which
Why
may
can't we just
require
change-
some little change in this.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
wording
if
from
I vote
affordable
no,
housing.
it's not because I don't agree with what's been said,
You
but
wanna
I don't
make a-
believe the language is really clear enough at this
You want
moment.
to
in
make a
time.
word or two change in it, so?
No, I don't.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the
I
discussion
agree
on
with
this?
her. I'm gonna say no.
Second,
Take the housing out of there.
We don't have the language yet.
we're going to do it this way. That's what we've got right now, prioritize state and federal funding for affordable housing.
There hasn't been a motion.
No, but that's what our discussion has come to. We haven't had a motion.
Can we just clear up the optimize versus prioritize first?
I would rather, like Paula said, this was under the strategy of increased revenue for affordable housing. So, I don't know how to fix it.
Isn't it, doesn't it do what you say, but
But we're not, we don't want to optimize everything, all state and federal funding for affordable housing, because obviously there's other needs in the town.
so why don't we drop this question for now? It needs to be reworked, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
So could we not use what is on 1230? What's on that original form, using designated town asset for creation of affordable housing, prioritize operating funds to support the administration of housing program development monitoring? Would that not be saying the same thing?
No.
Okay.
The problem is we've run out of time today.
Yep.
Yeah, but go ahead.
I move that we table this item for now until further discussion
Is there a
by this
second?
committee.
Second.
Second.
Committee members, Counselor Paula Schnapp,
Yes.
Counselor Betty Lutke,
Yes.
Counselor Charlie Bloom,
Yes.
Counselor John Crow,
Yes.
Counselor Gordon Starr, Committee Member Mary Ann Barboza,
And that is to put it off for another time?
Committee Member Hilda Hay,
Yes.
Committee Member Laura Schufelt.
Yes.
It's continued to your next meeting. Oh, sorry, Chair of Committee Rick Prisby.
Yes. Okay, so we got to schedule the next meeting. And I want to do it with, we have a pretty good attendance today, so it'd be nice to do it right now, so we have a chance of getting these things done at the next meeting. We'll have plenty of time, and we'll be able to get things done on time before the end of the month. So what are our possible dates? Monday or Friday coming up, huh?
If the committee members have a day, it doesn't necessarily have to be a date. I can tell you, according to the schedule they have in front of me for March, whether it's available or not.
Mondays are better for me.
Mondays?
Do we want to do it this coming Friday? Is that a possibility?
I can't.
Okay.
Let's see, I have 3 other committee meetings on the 14th of March, the 28th of March,
Well,
the 12th of March, the 7th. Yeah, you could do it the 7th. That's right after the town council meeting.
I can't do it that day.
Okay.
I'm away. But I can do it the 14th.
I have another,
How about I can't do it the 10th either. So how about the week of the 17th?
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 St. Patrick's Day, if you want to.
What?
I said that's St. Patrick's Day. Nobody can
Well, we're
have corned
green,
beef and cabbage.
3 o'clock?
3 on the 17th?
Is that all right with people?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yay.
Aye.
Yeah, what I'll do, Rick, is check